And ahead of the bank holiday weekend, has Dublin Airport done enough to avoid the chaos we saw last year?
This bank holiday weekend is a good time to take assessment and see what's going to start going wrong for the rest of the summer.
Well, so the harshest possible measures. Putin threatens vengeance on Ukraine after attack on Moscow.
And with fewer than 4 in 10 adults getting a COVID jab in the last 12 months, could the virus stage an unwanted revival? Summer approaches, but there's plenty of turbulence ahead at Dublin Airport. With the car parks full, no anti-drone technology in place and record numbers of passengers passing through, it could be a bumpy ride for anyone trying to get off the island. In a moment, we'll discuss some of the challenges with the Dublin Airport Authority. But first, Rita O'Reilly reports.
For thousands last year, getting in the air to escape the island took some of the fun out of the summer holidays.
For the last couple of years, getting through Dublin Airport has been a bit like God's way of making you look like your passport photograph.
This weekend brings the biggest test so far this year, with 425,000 passengers arriving and departing over the 4 days. Last year saw long queues at security, baggage delays and lost luggage due to post-COVID staff shortages.
The Dublin Airport Authority has made a conscious effort to increase the number employed in security to make sure that we don't have a repeat of the chaos that we saw.
The airport says that 90% of passengers cleared security in under 20 minutes over the last 10 months. And this month, it begins rollout of new 3D security scanners to replace existing baggage X-ray machines. Once there, there'll be no need to remove laptops or liquids, so screening times should be much shorter. But for now, the old rules still apply.
Other bits are certainly very close to straining. The car parks situation has been very well publicised. There are lots of other parts of the airport where some of the problems with getting personnel cleared to work airside, getting things cleaned and getting passengers through in an orderly manner. Things like IT issues that have affected one of the big airlines. There is a lot of work still to be done.
Car parking for those coming long distances is this summer's headache. A long-term car park owned by developer Jerry Gannon and used to secure a NAMA loan has been idle since COVID. State-owned DAA wants to buy it, but the sale is being reviewed by the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
People that have the busing and all the apps and everything else that's necessary to run an airport car park, the only people presenting themselves are DAA. So, like it or not, we're going to have to either decide to give them the licence to operate the car park for the summer, or are we going to run into a problem?
The Competition Commission told Primetime that an investigation into the sale automatically arose because the parties involved have turnover of over €10 million. But it also said it received 14 complaints about it. One underbidder has called for a short-term lease to open the car park, but it is understood there's concern that could risk the sale or the price. NAMA would only say its policy is that sales obtain the best achievable price. Last year, while the 5 airports handled over 32.5 million passengers between them, Dublin handled 27.8 million of that, over 85%. And Dublin expects to reach 40 million a year by the end of the decade.
There's no doubt that if Terminal 1 had been constructed properly and if Terminal 2 had been put in somewhere that wasn't a cul-de-sac, we would be well up to meeting all the passenger number targets right up to 2030.
The DAA wants to expand both existing terminals with a big refurbishment of Terminal 1 to provide more pier and stand capacity. It's now at pre-planning stage with Fingal County Council.
The DAA have said that we don't actually need a third terminal. Ryanair and Aer Lingus are also not in favour of a third terminal. Particularly Ryanair has said that if they just further develop the existing infrastructure, that will be sufficient.
When Dublin's passenger numbers fully return to pre-COVID levels, a decision on a third terminal will be unavoidable.
we're probably going to be looking at a long-term solution very soon, because the planning permission for Dublin Airport requires an application for planning for a third terminal, or one of those long-term solutions, as soon as our passenger levels hit 32 million. They were hitting that in 2019. We mightn't make it in 2023, but the way things are going, we'll surely make it in 2024.
Enter businessmen, the McAvady brothers and others with land for sale close to the airport's runways that they would argue is perfect for a Terminal 3.
This land is seen by many as a critical national piece of infrastructure because of its location right in, almost in the centre of the airport. Now, the McAvady brothers have been campaigning since they acquired land really in 1996 for an independent third terminal. However, depending on who you talk to, a third terminal is the greatest idea ever, or else it's completely unneeded.
There are alternatives to that proposal to build Terminal 3 in private land on the other side of the airport. I think the general scheme of things there was that it would open a new front door to Dublin Airport, and we'd forget about the planning mistakes of the past, particularly in the current Terminal 1.
Meanwhile, past blunders will continue to present a visible eyesore to the comings and goings from our land.
And that was Rita O'Reilly reporting there. Well, for more on this, we're joined now by Graeme McQueen, who is Media Relations Manager with the Dublin Airport Authority. And Graeme, thank you for joining us this evening. Lots of issues to cover. We might start with the issue of parking, which I know is going to cause quite a lot of problems for people this weekend. This was a problem last year as well, wasn't it? Is it an awful lack of foresight to find ourselves in this situation coming into the June bank holiday weekend?
Well, look, I think as an airport, we're in a much better position than we were 12 months ago. In terms of car parking, yes, there is a squeeze at the moment. That's because, as your VT alluded to, there's one of the private-owned car parks, 6,000 spaces out of action at the moment. That's heaping a lot of pressure on our own 23,000 spaces. We would like to open more spaces up. We've got parcels of land we could use. We would like to get into Quick Park, as it was alluded to there, but we've been told we can't do that for the moment. So for the moment, we've got what we've got. We can't magic up more car parking spaces. But the message to passengers is, if you haven't booked already for your holidays, get online and book. If you can't find the space, then you need to consider one of the alternative ways to get to the airport this summer.
And when did you realise car parking was going to be a problem this summer?
Well, I think we've been working on this issue for the past 12 months. We looked last year to increase the number of car parking spaces that we had available to us. We looked for a ministerial order to increase the number of spaces on the campus. We were told that wasn't possible. It is in the Fingal County Development Plan that we're not allowed to increase the number of car parking spaces that we have. So when the site at Quick Park became available late last year, we put in a bid for that. That bid was successful, and that is now subject to Competition Authority approval.
Yeah, and yet the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission saying that they only formally received notification of your intentions in March.
Well, that's due process. The bid wasn't actually accepted until February this year. So there's a process going on there. We're working very closely with the Competition Authority to provide them with the reassurances that they need. We're confident we can run that car park, run it well in a way that benefits consumers, and it'll prevent us from having any issues like we're having at the moment.
Yeah, the CCPC also say that they have requested documents and information from the various parties involved and are still awaiting that information.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of information required, and the team are working very hard to deliver that to them. If we got the keys to that car park today, we could open that within 1-2 weeks. So hopefully we can make that happen, and that'll ease the pressure on the car parks over the remainder of the summer.
Yeah, I suppose I do want to move on from the parking, but I suppose the whole point here being that because the work has not been done on this in advance, people are left now, put to the pin of their collar trying to get to the airport in time, and being told as well that they have to arrive 3 hours before a long haul, 2 hours before a short haul, because things are so busy. You know, if you're coming from Galway, Donegal, and now you have to get a bus because you can't take the car, you have a 9 o'clock flight, it makes things very difficult for people.
Well, we do have 23,000 car parking spaces available here that we do own. There is significant pressure on those spaces. So
they're all
if
booked
anyone
out for
hasn't
this
booked,
weekend.
they need to get on and book pretty quickly.
Yeah, I checked before we came on air, and they're all booked out. Yeah.
Okay, well, the message there to anyone who hasn't booked, and I think most would have booked if they're coming from that distance for a holiday this summer, would be to look at the alternative options. We're the biggest bus depot in the country. You can also, there's lots of taxi options. You can get dropped off by friends and family, and maybe look at some of the other car parks that are in and around the Dublin area.
I want to ask you about drones then, because people will, I'm sure, remember over the last couple of months, the airport's been closed down 6 different times so far this year because of drones being in around the area of the airport. I'll have to talk about anti-drone technology. We were told in March that anti-drone technology would be up and running in Dublin Airport within a matter of weeks. Still not there.
Yeah, look, we have bought the technology. We were asked by the government to do that. We did that very quickly within a couple of weeks. The technology is in place. We have our fire services team ready they're trained to use that piece of technology. The requirement now is that we need Comreg to approve our use of that technology. In the interim, we do have drone detection systems in place which work very effectively, so that if a drone is caught in the vicinity of Dublin Airport, then we know about it. Yeah. And obviously the message to anyone with a drone is it's illegal to fly a drone within 5 kilometres of Dublin Airport, so we would say to anybody, don't do it.
Yeah, knowing about it is useful, of course, from a safety perspective, but it doesn't do anything to stop it. So, for example, this weekend, which you're warning passengers is going to be very, very busy, what happens if a drone comes in around Dublin Airport on Saturday morning?
Well, look, we can't use the piece of technology that we were asked to buy for the moment, but we do have that drone detection system there. It works very, very effectively. As you mentioned earlier on, there's been 6 instances back at the start of the year which we caught using that system. So if it does happen this weekend, we are ready for it.
Well, you're ready for it in that what? The airport would have to be shut down?
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we would be able to deal with it so that wouldn't happen. But again, the message is loud and clear. It is illegal to fly a drone near Dublin Airport. If you do it, you will get caught. I think people have seen that already. There are a couple of cases up in front of the courts at the moment. So I think that sends a pretty strong message about it being illegal, and about if you are caught, there are pretty serious consequences that await you.
I want to ask you about the land that's gone on sale that we saw there in the VT in Rita's report in between the 2 runways in Dublin Airport. Does it not just make good business sense to buy that for future prospects, whether or not a decision is made now on Terminal 3, just to make sure you're not held over a barrel in 10 years' time when perhaps you will need Terminal 3?
Well, look, I think we'll weigh this up like all opportunities. I think one thing we do quite well as an airport authority is we master plan quite well. I think you see that with the building that I'm standing in here right now, Terminal 2. We built that before it was needed. 100 million passengers have gone through this terminal in the last 10 years. I think you see that with North Runway as well. It's been built at a time when we'll see growth coming down the line. So if there's opportunities there that we see, then we will look to capitalise on them. But on Terminal 3, we don't see a need for that at the moment. We think that's a number of years away, but when the time is right, we will look at those types of investment.
Yeah, Kevin Byrne, he's a lieutenant, retired colonel, also airport safety and security auditor. He was speaking on radio this morning. He was estimating that there could be 20 million extra passengers going through Dublin Airport in 10 years' time. And he was saying if you don't buy that land now and somebody else does, they will hold you over a barrel in 10 years' time when you really do need it.
Well, look, we'll weigh all that up as part of this process. We've got a lot of land banked around the vicinity of the airport. If you did need a Terminal 3, we would have to weigh up the best place for that. At the moment, you're seeing government directing a big investment into things like Metrolink, which would run past the current campus, Terminal 1, Terminal 2. The piece of land that you're talking about is a significant distance from that, so it makes sense that we bringing public transport into the area that we have at the moment, that if you were looking at a Terminal 3 down the line, you would probably look to have it closer to Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 as opposed to at the site that you're talking about.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Graeme McQueen. Miriam.